Hello everyone, and welcome to our sessions on digital heritage inspection and survey, which are kindly funded by Historic England. This is a programme of 10 sessions for learners of different experiences and backgrounds to find out more about how digital models and digital twins are being used in the heritage sector. There's a WhatsApp group where the learners can co-mentor and share resources too. My name is Lynda Jubb and I'm your host today. I'm a Chartered Building Surveyor and Fellow of the Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors. Our practice, Jubb Clues, specialises in the survey and repair of historic buildings. My co-host today is Kira Greenwood from Christians, the survey company. Welcome to our plenary session on digital inspection tools. The agenda today is going to run through how the course is delivered. So there's very little content today. We're just going to give you a bit of orientation. At 1 o'clock, the first of the sessions starts. And before that session starts, we'll have a screen break as well, because it is quite hard sitting in Zoom for a long time. We'll run through the dates and times for the sessions. We'll tell you a bit more about the content. We'll let you get to know each other a little bit and find out who's on the course with you. We're going to set up the mentor groups so that you can carry out your further learning together. We're going to ask you if you've got any questions right now, and also deal with how we're going to answer questions through the course, you know, your questions that come up. We'll discuss where the recordings are going and how we're going to be collecting feedback later as well. Okay, so there's a few do's and don'ts here. So those are all the do's. Here are the don'ts. You've got the course times and dates. Recommend that you try to attend about 4. Choose the ones that are most relevant to you. I thought it'd be useful to give you a bit of a run through. And I'm going to take you back to the darkest of times in 1434. I was really inspired by this painting, which is by Jan van Eyck. It's the one they call the Arnolfini, and it's thought to depict Giovanni di Niccolò Arnolfini. It hangs in the National Gallery, and it's really significant for all sorts of reasons. But the main reason that it's significant to me is that it comes from a time of when photorealism started to exist in painting. Before this, perspective was usually quite flat. And there's an amazing piece of research, which I will give you a link to, by David Hockney, about how it's thought that it was the use of optical tools, such as the curved mirror that you can see in this painting, that enabled artists to capture perspective accurately. And to some extent, that's where our story of reality capture for historic buildings starts. You can just see, if I move into the detail of this painting, you can see what they think is the artist and his assistant in the doorway. And the system that they're using is they're using the light from the large window, which is to the left of the sitter, to project onto the subject matter, which would have to them been projected upside down. And then they're using that to do a scale drawing, if you like, of the room. And that's why so many of the paintings from this time tend to be indoors. It's the whole camera obscura principle. So when you have an image from either a mirror or a lens, most of you will have done this, you know, as a kid, you know, make your own little camera obscura just from a pinhole in, say, a matchbox or something like that. The whole image is projected in reverse on the back wall of that box. Camera means room in Latin. So what they were doing was using the room as a sort of camera. Things didn't really move on until 1839, and this is a portrait of Daguerre, who invented the daguerreotype. He slightly pipped William Fox Talbot to the invention of photography. And the big breakthrough here was, rather than having to sketch the image as it was projected onto a surface, they were able to chemically fix it. And that's where modern photography comes from. So it's a direct descendant of an art form of projection, and it is the basis for nearly everything we do now with these reality capture models. Of course, early photography relied on the light. People would sit outside for minutes at a time to try and capture these images. And having stronger and stronger light sources was so important, as well as having better chemical reactions and better, eventually, in terms of digital data collection, better surfaces from which to collect the reflected light. Another big breakthrough came about a century later, and sadly, when aerial photography, which had been established from hot air balloons, started to be deployed with aircraft, with fixed-wing aircraft, and in this case, not with fixed-wing aircraft, with flappy-wing aircraft, to collect reconnaissance for military purposes. This was developed further when it was learned that by mounting 2 cameras on the aircraft with a gap between them, you could have a stereo view. With the stereoscopic viewers, this created a 3D image, and this is the basis of so much modern mapping. It is these straight overhead views, some of them slightly oblique overhead views. I know that in the first offices I worked in, we had stereoscopic viewers so that we could look at aerial photography and have a 3D effect. Another big breakthrough in 1961, this was the invention of the laser, and this enabled new technologies such as LiDAR, which is so extensively used in archaeology. And the other piece of technology which every surveyor will have in their survey kit, which is a disto, or an electronic distance measuring device. This has, to some extent, replaced the tape measure. Very light, accessible, easy tech, less than £20 now. Slightly more advanced mode in terms of EDM for the sort of topographic surveying that's been in use since then, but same technology, lasers underpinning all of that. Fast forward a little bit further, and that's when we started using terrestrial laser scanning, which is where Kira's going to talk to you in a bit more detail in session 1. This has been so useful for capturing scale record, detailed scale record of historic buildings. And the new advances are where you don't even need to have your fixed points to the traverse to go from. You can do it with what they call SLAM technology. And again, we'll talk about that further into the course. So the relevance for us as a small practice of surveyors, building surveyors, looking at the condition of buildings, that's what our particular interest, I suppose, came for us about a decade ago in 2015, when we carried out a large-scale condition survey of Blackpool Winter Gardens. And one of the main things that was holding us back and holding our client back was having accurate record of what the building was like. There was no measured survey because it had been built in phases. There were obviously architect's drawings for each phase, but you will have found from your own experience that they're very seldom updated to the actual as built. And obviously every refurb and small alteration wasn't captured. So as part of our condition survey, we were commissioned to also carry out a measured survey of the entire complex, which is vast. And one of the key outcomes for us in terms of condition surveying and for our client was one of void detection, that by carrying out measured survey, we could work out which areas potentially contained rooms that they didn't even know about. I mean, this was one of the problems that our client had was, they'd open a door and enter a room that they didn't know they had and had been untouched since the 40s. It's an absolutely vast complex built in at least 9 phases, and the levels throughout are very varied as well. I think at the highest it's about 6 stories above ground and 3 stories below on a sloping site. It's really essential for us to carry out the measured survey as part of the condition survey because the building had changed so much. I mean, this is a view of what is now an exhibition space that was built in the 20s. But before that, they had an enormous wheel there, And part of the resort feel of Blackpool was that they emulated the great resorts of Europe. So there was a big wheel in Vienna, and of course they had to have one here. You might have noticed that they've got a big iron tower, and that was an emulation of another famous iron tower in Paris. There's a significant thing in this photograph as well, as if you look over to the left, you can see the palm house, which was fully glazed from the lantern up at the top all the way down to eaves level there, with this huge curved facade. This was massively altered as well and became the subject of a re-roofing project, which I'll come to in a minute. So in terms of dividing up the spaces, we had to set up a new room numbering paradigm. We had to start thinking about the building in terms of separate builds and phases and blocks, because we wanted to understand the underlying construction and technology of those blocks. So this was the first thing we did with the measured surveys, is start to break things down into intelligible lumps, but also because going forward our client needed all of this to be BIM compatible, so we needed some kind of structure in terms of the records that we were collecting. As you drill down into the detail, you can see that within just one corner there, around the Spanish Hall suite, the block S5, there were within that a number of different roofs, and they all were in varying condition as well, so they all needed individual survey. The first project was to take forward just these roofs, just a handful of the roofs. And this included what had been the roof of the Palm House, but was now the roof of the Spanish Hall. And that's the large block in beige in the middle there. Roof B. The underlying pathologies were terrifying. I mean, you can see what had happened to the steel frames within the brickwork. Dangerous high-level structures. There was faience all the way down Coronation Street, which was scaffolded with catch nets until really recently. In fact, I think they've taken away the crash deck, and now they're relying solely on nets for the parts of the building that the repairs haven't started on yet. Remember, the building is grade 2 star, and although Blackpool didn't become a World Heritage Site, there was an application that was all about working class tourism and, you know, the significance of this place and these buildings, and the speed and the technology with which they were built. They're significant in their own right. But as you can see, these are serious maintenance challenges, especially in a harsh maritime environment where embedded steel does not have a comfortable environment. It's not ideal. Some of the structure was starting to show the wear. And on the Spanish roof here, you can see that some of the roofing had been overdrawn. Inside, they had this canopy to catch the leaks and the bits that were falling off. This is an archive photograph which shows this amazing cloud ceiling that was completely concealed and damaged by the disrepair that happened there. So our brief on the Spanish Hall, after we'd completed the condition survey of the whole block and identified the whole of the repair backlog, was then to get into project number 1, which was the repair of the Spanish Hall roof. So we went back to our data, and I think one of the things you'll learn in this course is that having repeatable survey data, being able to take initial data and then go back and add to it is so important. It might be that for various reasons you're not able to get all the data in one go. You might not have the funding, you might not have the access, you might not even own the building. The building might be in too poor condition for you to access it. Just more recently, we've been working at Burnley Empire, and we've had to do a staged approach to getting the metric data there, because the asbestos needs to be stabilised before you can get into all of the spaces. So we started to analyse the scan data with our own condition data using, this is a very simple tool. This is an orthogonal photograph, which is a scale photograph, rectified photograph, just starting to think about these elevations where you can see the bones of the old palm house, but where it's been covered over with this panelling, which was suspected to contain asbestos and also conceal below things that we weren't sure about. As we started to open it up, what we found was that actually originally the roof, well, not originally, because originally the roof had been glazed, but in the first phase of it becoming the Spanish Hall, so contemporary to those Spanish Hall interiors by Andrew Matsai, the roof had been covered in zinc sheets, and this gave us a clue as to what the repair would be. We also had to access up into that lantern, which it looks small on the elevation. I'll just go back one slide. Yeah, you can see that the lantern looks reasonably small on the elevation there, but actually is a vast space in itself, and contained within it various things for opening the lantern windows. Those had all sealed up, so we needed that for better performance in that space, actual sort of thermal and environmental performance in the space. But there was also quite a lot of rigging for lighting systems and so on. And as you can see, only the bones of that historic ceiling remained. So the safest way to get in there was with rope access, and we carried on doing the laser scans in a separate phase to explore this space. And using the information we got, we were able to piece together what the extents of this historic ceiling had been, and to put together a repair plan to restore it using the archive images and the ortho images from the laser scans. Again, a very cheap and effective tool given the scale of the project. Still lots of hand measurement, lots of detailed thinking and working to get everything to fit together again. And using some modern techniques such as plasterboard and ply sheets to recreate these clouds. But that was because we knew a lot more about how the ceiling had failed, and in particular, making it resilient to the sort of condensation and the humidity that this space, which is a dance hall, would have when it's occupied. I mean, even during the course of this work, underneath that crash deck, we had the Rebellion meeting, which is a punk festival of hundreds of people moshing up and down together. You know, it's a fabulous atmosphere, but it does take its toll on the building. Here's Richard. He's in the chat room. You can ask him a bit more about this. He will tell you that the precision of the detailing depended very much on the data that we took during the condition surveys and during the measured surveys. We also had the privilege of working with amazing lead workers and zinc roofing specialists, and the original patent glazing company came back to replace the patent glazing. And one thing he was able to achieve that he's rightly proud of is that we managed to line up all the zinc sheets with the patent glazing and the glazing lines of the lantern all the way up. Now, that might not be the most significant thing about this building, but it is significant. Not all roofs are overlooked, but this roof is heavily overlooked from Blackpool Tower. It's part of the significance of the building. And of course, as historic environment professionals, we're here not just to protect the special interest of the building, but to enhance it as well. We needed to say something that was about how this had been a palm hall originally, and you can see the spine of those structures showing through, and what it is today. I hope that's helpful to you to sort of understand how we've been using these digital models in practice, and maybe it gives you an insight into what the trajectory for me of this course will be. I want other people to be able to enjoy the technology the way we've done and feel confident about its use. So moving on to talk about you rather than me. This is some of the data we took from the expression of interest form. It's not 100% up to date because this is when we only had 66 joining the course. I think we've got 78 now. But as you can see, quite a lot of people are practitioners. So there are people like me and Richard and Hannah over here who are using digital models in the historic environment. There's a big chunk of students, and you're very welcome. I mean, I'm so thrilled that people who are early career and are coming into the professions and the trades are here. It's wonderful to see you. There's quite a good number of listed building owners, people managing listed buildings, people in delivery teams, and people who are commissioning these digital models. And it was really important for us that this course is a meeting of minds of people with different expertise. One of the questions you will remember from your sign-up form was a self-assessment in terms of your own expertise and knowledge. So as you can see, in terms of data capture technologies, we've got quite a lot of people who assessed as being down here towards the novice end, very few experts. In fact, I think that number one that says that they're a 10 is probably John Bedford, who's our project manager from Historic England, and he's right, there's not very many people more expert in this subject matter than he is. And a good spread of expertise on every subject matter that we're going to be covering. I'm particularly pleased to see that over here we've got experts who know about grant funding, because I think it's very important that we talk about the business case for these models, how they're procured. We've got some expertise here as well, which is great. So I really will encourage you to not rely on me to give you the information, because I'm not an expert in all of these areas. I'm here to connect you together with other experts and hopefully give you an appetite for learning. We did sort of get a feel for who wanted to attend which sessions. So I'm delighted that the next session, which is Kira, that's going to be starting at 1 o'clock, is going to be dealing with data capture technologies. And that's where the bulk of you were interested to learn more. I can see interest tapers off towards the end of the course. I hope that doesn't happen in practice. I hope once you get used to the learning style and you get to know each other, that you want to come to more of the sessions. And of course, you will be able to pick them up through the recordings. So that was one of the questions I got asked a couple of times on the expression of interest form, was I'd asked if anybody had particular questions. People struggling to attend all of the sessions, that's completely fine. People with other commitments, school pickups and so on, completely fine. Yes, there will be content and links recommended through the FAQs, and there will be recordings. I should talk a little bit more about the mentor group. It might be worth me just running a little poll here. So out of the 36 people here, 34 have voted. So hopefully you can see there that a lot of this was by word of mouth, but I think that's very relevant for this group, because that's how I learn. I learn from other people, from asking questions, and I'm going to encourage you to do the same. And also be prepared to help other people. There'll be areas where you're the expert, and I'm hoping you can step in and share your expertise. I'm hoping there are people here that know more about almost everything that's course content than I do, and will be willing to share it with the others. There will be questions all the time. We'll try to answer them if we can here, and I'm going to open up for your questions in a moment. After the sessions, we're going to put together FAQ sheets. Stuart.
Hi everyone, it's not so much a question. I'm just really interested in learning about the different digital platforms that are available for the use of 3D models, and any is anyone aware of any attempts to standardize them, because they all do different things. And at English Heritage we're probably playing around with about 5 or 6 at the moment, from Sketchfab, Matterport, NIRA, a whole load of them, and they all do different things, and there doesn't seem to be any standardization, and that's what I'm keen to learn more about.
It's a key observation. I mean, maybe we can unpack a bit here about the reasons why there aren't standardization across the platforms. I know that in the IT world in general, there's been a very defensive way about how the apps and the systems are built. I mean, for instance, I'm a Mac user, we're Mac users here. So straight away with certain other packages, we have compatibility issues, and they're improving all the time. But for instance, for CAD, we use Vectorworks because it's an American package, and it runs like a dream on Macs, but also because it is actually designed for really chunky graphic content. So it works for us. It works for us. And I suppose the flip side of there being a lack of compatibility between the different platforms, Stuart, would be that there's also diversity there, in as much as people can choose for themselves the packages that suit them best. The other thing that we'll be dealing with, perhaps more in session 3, is the extent to which you do need a high-end package. Do you need something that can do everything to work across multiple platforms? And where they're licensed and demanding a fee either to retain your data or to renew your license and do updates and keep you secure, in terms of those bugs and settings, is that fee justified?
Yeah, thank you. It's just another observation, really, that so far technology has been very driven towards either BIM or creating pretty models without much functionality. And I think in the world of estate management, asset management, we're looking for models where you can tag or embed data that help things such as planned maintenance programs or life cycle analysis of buildings, so that you can help form budgets and resources from that data. And I think that's the bit that is so varied across the different platforms, and it's being driven by competition, which is not a bad thing. But you end up a bit like the world of phones or cars, where no one makes a compatible cable that fits them all, or battery, and it's just a bit of a mess, I find. And the more you have, the more it costs, until it becomes unaffordable as well. So that's kind of the root of my question, really, and what I'm here to learn more about.
Oh, I agree, because I mean the difference between a digital twin and a digital model is, what have you got in terms of back data? What other data sources does it link to? The models themselves are great, and we can use them for inspection tools, and that might be where we start on this journey together. But I think one of the reasons that the market as a whole hasn't been able to feed back, hey, we want compatibility, is because the kind of conversations hopefully we'll be having here aren't happening. There's still quite a lot of silo working. I'm going to bring in Kira.
Hi, I'm Kira from I'm going to be leading the course today at 1 o'clock. But I just wanted to pick up on that, Stuart, because I totally agree with you. Working in the survey industry as well, we find it really hard because there are so many different softwares that are not compatible with each other, and it stems all the way down to how you pan around a model. Like, they can change from Revit to CAD, Autodesk to NIRA, whether you hold down the scroll button or you don't hold down the scroll button. It can be as simple as that. But I just wondered what software you're using at the minute to try and to implement all your documents. Do you have anything that you actually use, or are you looking for something?
No, we use a number of things. We're mostly playing around with things, I think, because we haven't found a platform that we want or we're happy with, or is flexible enough. So we're trialing Matterport at the moment, but we find them really hard work, because it's an American-based company, and they're not flexible to user requirements. You buy it or you don't, and it's a really clear position from them. But it does have quite a lot of functionality, the new external 3D camera that enables you to do all of internal and external detailing, just not above the building, which I think is a future option, to a platform called NIRA, I think it is, that Historic England are actually in partners with us, trialing that, looking at tagging data, and several other ones. And I think what we want from it is being the function of exporting data into sensible formats of either schedules of work or useful reports without spending vast amounts of time creating documents as the output from it. So there's a few examples.
Yeah, I think from my experience, it is a case of, at the minute, there's so many companies and apps and softwares developing new softwares that we will get there in the end. It's just because it's new technologies and things like that, it's almost like it's just not been brought together yet. I think there's definitely potential for some of the softwares, like you say, they're now implementing a lot of the features, but there's a few more that they could still add. I think one of the issues is the cost with all this, though, especially if it's small projects. You just can't. It's just not worth the cost that they're actually charging. But hopefully, one day someone will produce something that everyone can use and it's compatible with everything.
I think that's the point, though, that we can't wait. You know, that heritage is a data-rich industry, and also because we have the things that we're very good at, and that's what I'm hoping that this group can do as well. There are people here who are not from the heritage sector. We can learn things from other people, but those other sectors who are really pushing the tech forward, I'm hoping we're going to get somebody here from social housing and people who are using these in infrastructure projects and so on, who are able to tell us what they're doing, but vice versa, that we can push back with the things that we're very good at. So we're very good at handling lots of different kinds of data with everything for each individual site, very bespoke, and even right down to the scheduling and specifications. But also that we're very good at record keeping. There's things that happen in this sector which don't happen anywhere else. One of the things that pushed us into, in the example that I gave you, was that the government had mandated that BIM would be necessary on all government projects after, I think it was 2016 or 2017. So we were asked in that metric survey to get the whole project BIM ready. Now, the industry isn't BIM ready, but you've got to start somewhere. And it was that sort of regulatory push that got us a little bit over the line. But the other thing we can do is we can look at what data we've already got. I mean, Historic England's got its fabulous enrich the list function, which is on the national database of the listed buildings. So we've already got some very usable GIS compatible databases that we can add to, as well as we're going to show you a bit more about where these records go and how they're archived during the course. But this is absolutely what we're here for, Stuart, and I'm really grateful for the question, because any progress we make on that, even by asking questions, is going to be useful. One of the key outputs from this course, and something we'll be measured on, is whether we can, by the time we get through to sort of session 10 and the next plenary session when we close down the actual course itself, is whether we can set some research directions, things that we want funded so that it will improve our industry, and that we've identified where our learning needs are collectively as well as individually. Any other questions in the room? Thanks so much for joining.